If we all believe that relationships are hard work, then this is what we are going to get. Words, the beliefs, the way we think is a very powerful approach to our reality. Several years ago, I said no to this paradigm and I started to invest really deeply in my relationship skills, understanding the underlying patterns, mechanics, blueprints, things at play. And oh my gosh, I realized that most of us invest more into our career than into our social skills. At that point, I had very clear we need something new. So 5 years ago, I founded Modern Couples, the antidote to couples therapy, because I believe that there is a group of people who wants to proactively learn these things much rather than wait until the shit hits the fan. There's a group of people out there, and you are probably one of them, and that's why you're here, who has no time for bad relationships. In this podcast, we talk about inspirational stories, role models, how to navigate the good, the bad, the ugly, and raise the bar, showing up for each other and for love. I speak with experts from different fields that potentially have never thought about how their expertise applies to relationships, but it does. And I share my own entrepreneurial journey. We talk about love, purpose, and growth. I invite you to listen up, not just with your ears, but with your heart. And share your aha moments, because that's what's going to rewire your brain to 10x your love. Welcome to another episode in the Modern Couples podcast. Today, my guest is Darshana Avila, and she is a trauma-informed somatic educator, practitioner, and international speaker who helps people reconnect with the most essential aspect of themselves, their truths, their desires, and their capacity for authentic connection. Oh, I love these words. I want to say, I know you really from I think launch day in Sex Love Group. I watched the series back then. I was in Bali. Now I'm in Portugal. But yeah, your work is featured in this lovely Netflix series that is, yes, I think, still available. Go watch it. The Guardian, the New Yorker. You are in all the leading podcasts out there. It was such an honor to receive your request to be here, part of my podcast. And today we are going to talk about, well, in my mind, I coined it beyond performance, talking about intimacy, sex, lovemaking, but always with a twist, because Modern Couples looks at the modern zeitgeist of relationships. So we're going to weave in culture and many things that are out there happening and affecting the way we relate and how we show up in relationships. And with all of that, let's see what really wants to come through. That was just my idea.
And then there's
Welcome
what
to the podcast.
Right?
Exactly.
I'm happy to be here, Marcella. Thanks for having me.
Oh, how are you feeling this morning? We have 9 hours, I think, difference here. It's the end of the day. How are you today?
I'm good. I had a great night of sleep. And as a woman in her mid 40s, I don't take that for granted. So, hormones, they're real.
I'm so glad how you answer. It's like sleep is not minor. It's big. You
No,
show
it
up
is
as a big
major.
person.
It is
I'm
that
like,
is the
sometimes when you do
foundation of the house.
relationship coaching, yeah, like all you could do is work on sleep and people would be, in better relationships and better with one another. Like if I imagine the politicians getting actual sleep.
Oh, well, getting actual sleep, getting good sex, having real
Yeah.
intimacy, the things that we know I learned something about. I'm quite convinced that if the world had a different relationship to these, we would be living in a different world.
Oh, I agree so much. That's a big one. Sometimes I think also, we have these fantasy romance and they depict the benevolent king and the queen, and it matters to us if there is a love story in the book. Imagine, it wouldn't be there. It wouldn't take us as much as it does. And now we look at the leaders of the world, and there was something to Obama and Michelle just because they were loving each other.
Yeah,
Besides of
they were
everything
the
else,
fairy
it was,
tale.
you know.
they, they were totally embodying the fairy tale. It's real. And one of the things that's great about them is they also keep it real. And Michelle in particular will be like, yeah, we got our stuff.
Yes,
As
yes.
all couples do.
Well, Yeah, such an honor. Let's tune in a little bit. Maybe first, can you give us like a little bit in a nutshell, like the core essence of your work? And with that, I said beforehand, like this is not meant to be the podcast where we go into all the basics of your work. I'm happy to link other podcasts where you share all that. But just for someone who doesn't know you, can you give us a little bit of your background?
Sure.
What really caught me was erotic integrity, but you may introduce yourself, like what excites you these years. Who are you?
Yeah. Once upon a time, I would have referred to myself as a sex and intimacy coach. And that very quickly, I have been in private practice for over a decade now. This has been the focus of my life in so many ways. And very quickly, what I noticed was that we were missing a lot by placing an emphasis on sex and discounting the wider scope of what eroticism is. So my body of work is called Erotic Wholeness because I want to talk about those two things with people. I want to help those of you listening understand eroticism as something that, instead of it being a synonym for sex, or for some people, they hear that word and it actually is like a very specific expression, like a very sensational or even tawdry expression of sexuality, which it always kind of like catches me by surprise because I'm like, that's so different from how I understand that word. And I understand that word, eroticism and eros, as more, we can liken it to our life force energy, our vitality. It is our passion and our creativity. And so, yes, that flows into our sex, but it flows into many other things. It can be your artistry, whatever form of art, your activism. It could be the way you tend relationships of all manners, not just a sexual, intimate relationship, but with your family, with your friends, with your community. It's where you are channeling your aliveness and how you are channeling that matters. And so I take, I'm very fortunate, and it's important to say as a white woman that this is not like my original thought. And I draw very heavily on Audre Lorde in particular, who's one of the grandmothers of the Black intersectional feminist movement. And if you want, talking about background, Google uses of the erotic. It's an essay by Audre Lorde, and there's like YouTube videos of her reading it in her own voice. It's a short PDF. We're talking a few pages here. It's not lengthy. And it's a whole exploration of what I'm speaking to here, that specifically in her um, presentation of it, it's very specific to women. But I do believe that we all have this vitality flowing through us and a choice for how we want to be a steward of that energy and how we want to be a channel for that energy, where we want to direct it. And so eroticism, if we are considering as a couple, as a relationship, like what do we want our erotic life to look like? Sex is one component of that, but so is emotion, and so is sensuality, and so is the relationship perhaps being greater than the sum of its parts. Like, what do you as a couple stand for that is bigger than each of you individually, and that you want to pour your joint and collective life force energy into? Um, yeah, that was not a brief intro, but but it definitely gives you a sense of where I come from. And then I'll speak briefly to the wholeness half of the equation, because it matters, even though I'm emphasizing eros and eroticism. Wholeness, that my belief is that none of us is broken. We have intrinsically within us all that we need to thrive and to feel ourselves as whole. What's also true is that we live in a world where we are fragmented, like disconnected. So it is an invitation then to gather up those parts of ourselves, to understand and cultivate a really deep intimacy with our own self, where we are bringing together the fullness, the wholeness of our expression in all that we do. So that's where erotic wholeness came from. And yeah, like I said, once upon a time, I would have said I'm a sex and intimacy coach. And I have a YouTube video that's something like, I'm a sex coach who doesn't like to talk about sex. And the thing is, I talk about sex all the time. I do hands-on, hands-in, deep diving work with my clients. Orgasms are happening, technique is being discussed. But if we're taking that in isolation and separating it from our erotic nature, it's only going to ever feel this much satisfying, right? A little bit portion. Whereas when we consider who we truly are and our erotic nature and our wholeness, we have an opportunity to thrive at a much deeper and greater level.
You're preaching to the choir, and I love how you say that. Let's say in these last years, I mean, you and I are in a similar, very similar industry, and the last years, the relationship coaching or the sex coaching industry kind of boomed. That's at least what the numbers say, and very often I feel like it's very like looking at one part. Which all have their justification to be there, and there is people who exactly are looking for that. But for me, when it comes to relationship, to sexuality, it is not like learning how to drive a car, and once you have passed it, you are set for life, so to say.
Right.
It's like from there it's almost like life only begins. It's like, oh, you were born a human, you have this talent, but if you haven't learned to access your sexual power, or your own inner life force energy, or how to actually thrive in relationships with others, it's like, well, you are somewhere stuck in the mud, and life is only just getting started. And
Yeah.
so from your work, I imagine it also radiates into all areas of life. Like humans are different leaders when they have a fulfilling sex life. Humans are differently kind on the street when they have a good sex life, a fulfilling sex life,
Yeah.
which, not doesn't, as you said, it's not all about just intercourse. It's really about knowing your sexual blueprint, or,
Yeah.
uniqueness.
Well, and I would add to that, like, yes, if our politicians were all well fucked, we would be living in a different world. There's no question. But also, if the people with power were actually channeling a true, genuine, embodied source of power, if their creativity was allowed to flow, if there was a sense of real relational integrity, by which I mean being in right relationship with all the layers of that. So that could be you and your partner or your child. That could be your wider circle of friends and family. That could be community. That could be professional life. So when you are in integrity in those relationships, and really there's alignment, and we could say resonance, a very synchronistic flow, we are so much more fulfilled. This is what we're made for. And many of the ways that modern humans are living, it really just fly in the face of everything that is in our nature. And that, for if we consider like an arc of evolutionary time, humans have been on this planet for a very, very, very long time. Modernity is like a blip, and we are really living out of sync with our nature in so many ways nowadays. Like, you and I were having a brief mention about technology and AI as we were getting on here and dealing with the microphone's not working. And then, it's like, and that's just one example of the ways that, like, we're really increasingly, I mean, but two things I think are true. I could say we are getting increasingly further and further away from our true nature, but there's also an answer back that we're seeing. There's a rising up of people having conversations like what we're having right now, and saying this is not okay, and we're not actually thriving, and our world is not going in a direction that feels good and true and trustworthy. What do we need to do differently? And I think the conversation that I get excited about having is, especially when we draw a dotted line between interpersonal relating and like the wider scope of like politics and what's going on with the people in power and governance and such. Like, we can only start where we are. And so if we do what we can do to live our lives more resonantly with our true nature, and tapped into our life force energy, and really tending to our relationships with care, that does ripple out. It might sound very kumbaya, but it's really all we've got, So,
I fully agree. I oftentimes, I mean, let's talk a little bit about, the zeitgeist and what you also experienced changing over the past years. Like, I am 38 years old, and in my time as human on this planet, I have, let's say, 5 years officially as relationship coach. I have more years as leadership coach working in the corporate world, and in that time, I went on my own private personal journey on the art of relationships. I went
Mhm.
to tantra retreats, trainings, massages. I went into the world of uh, shameless society, kink events, just exploring, learning, always, making sure I am safe. I have mentors, I have my partner, and I explored all of that. And it was kind of the time when, let's say, 50 Shades of Grey was also, out there. And that was a time where I feel like, yes, Goop was able to pilot such a series and go out there and show to the world what is possible. And it's in my memory, it feels like for, let's say, a decade, maybe 2 decades, we were on the rise of like, oh wow, like liberation. There is more to intimacy, sexuality, eroticism. There are different words. There's, all of that, and it's broadcasted. It's digital. It's available wherever you are in the world. I mean, let's be honest. We are also a very privileged group to even think about this. Like the majority of women is not in healthy, thriving relationships where they even get to explore all of this with
Yeah,
their partner, right?
that's
So
true.
it's like we are on this planet Earth. We are like a small group of people that has the privilege to be aware of this existence, even of these topics, and also then to having access to learning it. And I feel like we are piloting almost like what is possible if you are living in a relationship where you tap into that, where you can live and explore that, and what do you pass on, not just to your lineage, but also to the people around you. Like, are you a better person if you are well fucked? Are you a better person if you know these things exist? Right? Does it ripple into your community? I really wonder, because in the last years it feels like, oh, okay, so we had 10 years, maybe 2 decades, and then AI came and technology came, and we had all of a sudden no more time for these things. Like,
Yeah. You know what's
that's
interesting?
my perception.
I'm gonna riff on that piece because a colleague of mine just made a post that I happened to see on social media this morning where he was citing a number of different scientifically research, like data backed peer reviewed articles and that were kind of at the cusp of like what is true and current in sexuality. And one of them that stood out to me, we like, I'm going to use porn as an example of technology. And so like we have a lot of like a lot of just hype that porn is bad, like it's going to ruin your relationships. And this study showed that actually moderate amounts of porn use actually lead to better communication and healthier boundaries in partnerships. Moderate amounts of porn use, right? So we're not talking about like addictive and compulsive behavior, but I use that as an example. Like anything in terms of any form of technology, it can be a tool, it can be a weapon, right? So it's
Love
all in
that.
how you use it. It's all in the relationship you choose to cultivate with it. We're seeing that with AI. I was at an event a few weeks ago where I met somebody who like a sex tech founder who's bringing this new device to the market that's like you can, I forget what I think it's called Groove Thing, where it is an insertable sex toy that can be synced up to your choice of music and vibrates internally like to your music choice. Like I mean, it's just kind of, this is like a far out there example, but I'm like, wow, like we're so creative, us humans, like we're so creative. And if you want to use things to, like, if you want to use the science, the technology, all of that to create instruments of pleasure or instruments of mass destruction, it's a choice, like it's all in how you use these things, tool or weapon. And the more connected we are, then again, this brings it back to like self intimacy, to allowing life force to flow through you, to creativity, to being in right relationship. When that's happening, like when I use a term like being like well fucked, like it's a little tongue in cheek, but it's not totally off base. I mean, but well fucked meaning you are having a consensual, satisfying experience of your sexuality, of what healthy intimacy is, you are really turned on and lit up by what's going on, chances are good you're going to want to turn things into tools, not weapons. Chances are good you're going to want to nurture a culture that uplifts the greater good as opposed to a small minority wielding tyrannical power over the majority. Like, so it's really, for me, and I'm an Aquarius, if we've got astrology fans out there, I I bounce very readily between like the macro and the micro, the big collective and the tiny little personal. So bear with me as I be my Aquarius self when I say like what is going on in your bedroom really does have a correlation to what's going on in the upper echelons of power and governance. And so, it's not, to me, it's like not that far of a stretch. Also, and this is bringing in just like statistics that are true from politics, when, and again, I'm citing things without giving the actual source here, so bear with me as I do that too. 3.5% of the population rising up saying we demand this kind of change is historically all it takes for change to happen. 3.5%. That's not a very big number. So when you speak about us being a privileged minority, me, you, the people who are likely listening to this podcast, we actually have a lot of power in that small privileged minority to keep following the path that we're on, to create the cultures that really align and resonate with us, and to believe that there can be a positive ripple effect far greater than we might ever imagine. Maybe not in our lifetimes. I don't know that. I don't have a crystal ball, but if my choices are to just like dread absolutely everything that's coming, or to believe that we still have a chance to turn this ship around, I'm going to choose the latter. So,
like, absolutely, thank you for saying that. Like, I'm all about, and my dog was just coming by saying
hello,
hi.
dog.
She flipped her.
Real life.
Short interruption, because this message really needs to go out there. The quality of your relationships impacts the quality of your life. It is, in fact, the key factor. And here we are, fearing and shying away from commitment, shying away from the emotional work, when really this is what distinguishes us from the machines, embracing emotions and learning how to embrace differences. So modern couples, what started out as the small coaching business has turned into a university, or I like to call it a universe. It is the place where ambitious leaders can upgrade their relationship skills up front. It is the place where couples turn to when they wonder, should I stay? Should I go? Where we explore, if necessary, the graceful path of uncoupling. And it is also the place where we newly introduce bespoke matchmaking for ambitious individuals. If you are interested in any of that, because really every phase of life is an opportunity to grow your relationship skills, check out modern-couples.com. Once a month, there is a free masterclass where you can meet me, where we can connect, as well as if you like more the one-on-one approach, there is a limited amount of free discovery calls. See that you can get hold of one of them, and I hope we get to connect. I look forward to elevating your relationship. I had this moment when I really felt, oh my gosh, like if we are, the small group, like please, like everybody join the club. Like we need to, if it's us, who, if not us, is going to be the 3%? I'm happy to use that number. It feels right, because it's not only the ripple effect from there. It's also, a whole different energy or frequency or upbringing for children is coming into the field through
Oh my God.
that, right?
Yes.
Witnessing completely different role models as parents, and it's just, whenever I ask someone, who inspires you as a couple, they have no one to turn to. They have no inspiration for that. And I was joking in one of my leadership trainings at a lunch table. Sometimes I like to, if I know that the crowd, I can bring that. But I was wondering loudly, how would lunch conversations in the workplace be if it wasn't about, okay, weekend or vacation, but rather about sharing, I had such a fantastic night with my wife last night, or, sharing, we have difficulties, or we are exploring this new thing. And I'm not saying everybody needs to talk about it, but it's people get bored talking about vacations and weekends. And also, I want to know how you are. And if we were to talk about it more, we would also exactly like not even need potentially that moderate amount of porn to get even to ideas, because I do agree, like a certain level of porn also helps us even get inspired, because where else are we getting inspiration from if we are not talking about it? Like,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, and I think that too harks to what I said before about the way we live in modernity is like a tiny blip on in the arc of time. And where that becomes relevant to what you're saying is once upon a time when we were living in small tribal bands in villages, everybody knew everybody's business. So you couldn't keep your sex life a secret. You couldn't keep it a secret if you and your partner or partners were having a squabble, or somebody was acting like an idiot and needed to be called in, or someone discovered this really amazing new sex position. Like, we all knew what was going on. Our ancestors did. So the isolation that we experience as modern humans, people, we hear a lot. I'm sure I'm not going to surprise anybody when I make a reference to like loneliness as an epidemic, and we've spoken about like technology as an intermediary in our lives, the ill effects of that. I mean, we all hear this stuff. We know it's like, it's talk about cultural zeitgeist. That the remedy to that is being relational with each other, which is what we are made to do. We're wired for it. Everything in our makeup, everything that makes us human, centers around relationships, centers around sharing, centers around creativity, ideas being back and forth, bounced back and forth. I'm getting ahead of myself in my sentence here. This is how ingenuity happens. This is how art happens. This is how culture happens. And we are increasingly, especially, somebody like myself, I am an Ashkenazi Jew. 100%. There is not a single variance in my DNA. So that means that once upon a time, my ancestors were living in Eastern Europe. I was born in New York. I now live in California. I do not have a connection to any sense of indigeneity in my life. But I know that once upon a time, like, my people did live in a very insular village. There's no way I would be 100% Ashkenazi Jewish otherwise. Like, my DNA couldn't have, continued to carry that line. And where am I going with this? I feel like I'm getting off on a tangent here. But it's like, it's culture is where I was starting to go with this. I may not feel like I have a sense of culture from my ancestral inheritance. I question what on earth American culture is in this present day and age. But what I do know is that there are cultures in the small subsets of community and relationship that I invest in that we are creating together. And that's all it takes is two people or more. You just at least need two to say, these are the values that we want to organize around. These are the symbols of our culture. These are the songs and the rituals and the foods and the style of dress and the practices and the activities. Like, that is what culture is made of. It's not only something that is handed to us, it's something that we get to actively create. And where better for that to begin than inside of like an intimate relationship, inside of a lovership, inside of a biological family unit. Not the only places, but certainly they are. It's a starting point. So we get to choose that now. And to your mention of like children, I marvel. I'm not a parent myself, but I marvel at how some of my friends in particular are raising their kids with a degree of consciousness and somatic intelligence, and teaching them about bodies and agency in their body, which is to say, like, your body is yours. You don't have to go kiss this person. You don't have to go hug that person. You actually learn about consent. Like, I am surrounded by such incredible children being raised by amazing parents who are choosing to create cultures in their families, in their circles, that give these little ones, give these next generations, like, a completely different leg up than what I and you, given our ages, like what we got, like, and I mean, look, my parents did the best they could and they did better than their parents where that's concerned. And we know most of us would agree, I think collectively we got a ways to go. So
Yes, yes, yes. It's there was a lot of wisdom in there. Thank you. I really love the width of our conversation. And as I was preparing and thinking about where this could go, I was also thinking about, what also happened in the last well, 3 decades probably is, globalization. We celebrate it as a win, but when it comes to intimate relationships, it's a challenge also to be in multicultural, different backgrounds, relationships, especially when it comes to values, usually not being the first thing we talk about, and they do show up in the bedroom as well. And it's like, just because we are two people doesn't mean that we instantly click, connect, and know how to communicate verbally or non-verbally in the bedroom. And I thought about, who are going to be, well, here we are, European and American, different backgrounds. Um, can it just click like that? What do we need to say as disclaimers, so to say, to people, or are we all merging into oneness eventually because we are all having the same conversations around intimacy? No, like, I do feel there is a challenge, or there is the invitation to find words to talk about different desires in sexuality and even upbringing and
yeah.
values. And it has gotten, it's we celebrate globalization and flying everywhere and having the exotic experiences or this or that, but also we are not aware of, we are also increasing complexity, and we are still in the beginning of even learning words to address our needs, desires, boundaries, and all of that. It's like, you need to be
I,
fast learning these things for for traveling the world and being with everyone.
yeah, there's so much in what you just said. I mean, I think we could talk about multicultural or intercultural relationships, which I have been in many times over, including in my marriage. And also, I don't think that's the only situation that gives rise to two people coming together to create an intimate connection and not being in alignment. Most of us do not have vocabulary. Most of us do not have examples and did not receive guidance to know how to relate well. So we spoke about fairy tales at the very beginning. Maybe the top fairy tale is that we just magically should know what to do when we quote unquote love somebody or we're hot for them. Like, that's just not how that works. I mean, yes, instinct will kick in, and many of us have really good instincts. Also, many of our instincts have been dulled and really conditioned by the world that we're living in, and misinformation or lack of information, lack of rites of passage that would help us to grow into our sexuality, our interpersonal relating skills in good ways. So, the work that I do, you could call it sex ed for adults, because it's nothing. I'm constantly saying to, like, my clients, like, this isn't rocket science. I'm just teaching you the things that in a perfect world we would have learned when we were like children and teenagers, but we don't live in a perfect world. And how fortunate that at least we get to do this now. Get to teach my clients, for instance, about the anatomy of their arousal and pleasure as opposed to simply reproductive anatomy. We get to talk about what are the different ways that intimacy can take shape, can express itself, can go, not just because you're trying to make a baby, but because you want pleasure in your lives and you want connection and you want a sense of seeing and being seen. You want to express parts of yourself that maybe do not get to come out in other aspects of your life. You made a brief mention earlier of like tantra, kink. There's so many different ways, whether it is sexuality channeled into an intimate spiritual experience, or sexuality that involves, and kink doesn't have to be inherently sexual, nor does tantra. That is a very like narrow lens on things that are just so vast and wide. You know, tantra is a tremendous esoteric body of wisdom, of which sexuality is like, I don't know, like 1/16 of it, like really. But of course, in the modern Western world, we latched on to the sex and we're like, tantra is about sex. BDSM, I actually was just having this conversation with a client yesterday where we did a BDSM exploration for their session. And we're talking about all the ways that you could explore BDSM that has absolutely nothing to do with sex or genital focus, at least. Like, so back to erotic expression, right? Like if we get to learn how to be more creative and more permissive with that energy, like it just opens up such a wide realm of possibility. We get to learn vocabulary, we get to learn consent, and centering pleasure and mutuality. We get to write, instead of the script that we've been handed that says sex equals a penis and a vagina, sex equals the person with the penis getting off and then we're done. Like these very, very narrow heteronormative scripts that we've been handed, we get to throw those out the window and say sex is what we make it. And the more we refine our vocabulary and refine our communication skills, take the shame out of it, get rid of the myth that talking about sex somehow ruins the mood. It's like, oh God, they could not be further from the truth. Talk about it. It's going to get better.
Yeah. Thanks for that reminder.
Yeah. I mean, it is. It's like, you know, I so many of my clients who I support will say things like, well, you know, like I know my partner wants me to tell them what I like, but either A, I don't know what to say to them, or B, I'm afraid that if I speak up, they're going to get offended, or somehow it's going to like interrupt the flow. We're going to get taken out of the mood. And I'm like, okay. And look, I'm not saying that could never happen. And I also think it's really good to cultivate a practice of talking about sex and intimacy not during sex, like having these as conversations in moments of neutrality when nobody's hungry or tired or distracted, like show up resourced and focused and available to say, like, let's actually talk about this thing that we both really care about. Let's have a structured check-in and a conversation about what we're wanting, what we're enjoying, what we see as opportunities for things to get even better for us, to come even closer to each other. I mean, imagine if those were normal conversations inside of most partnerships. And yet, most people are still back to that, oh, well, we just assume it's going to work. Sweetheart, if you're listening and that's you, that's not how that works. Like, you're going to have to learn how to talk about your sex, and you can. These are teachable skills. It's not rocket science. We just get to get over the shame, and we need a little bit of guidance, and that's fine. No shame in needing guidance. We all do. This is why people like you, Marcella, and me, like, it's like, we're here, use us.
Yes. Yes. I mean, for me, I'm sure you agree to that. Like, it's not just a profession or a business. It is also a form of activism to support people on their
100%.
journey. Like, I am doing that because, you know, I don't want to get more AI ads out there. I'm doing this because I believe it's actually going to make a change in your home, in your family, how you show up in your business. And like, I'm standing up for, you know, remember how to be human. And you said that as well. And it's like, sometimes it's really hard to be in a first session and be in this sales dynamic where it's like, no, I actually want you to succeed because humanity depends on this. And
You're preaching to the choir. This work is completely, for me, this is my activism. It is my service. And I also tell my clients all the time, like, I want you to not need me. I want to get you to the point, like, I am not trying to create some kind of dependency for you on me. Let's give you the skills. Let's give you the experience and permission. Let's facilitate the transformation that you need to be able to embody your erotic nature. And you used a phrase that I often use. I want you to learn how to human. That's fundamentally what this is about. Or if we are erotic by nature, and I believe that we are, then this is all about how do I human as best I possibly can.
Mm-hmm.
It's
Yes.
really not more complicated than that. Doesn't mean it's easy. I'm
Yeah.
not, like not saying that it's easy, because we are dealing with layers of cultural conditioning. I, in particular, as a trauma therapist, work with a lot of people who are healing from, in some cases, very significant trauma histories. So none of this is making light of the fact that for some people, this journey will take a considerable amount of effort, and also what could be more worth it.
150% to all of that. And um, we are coming to an end, but like something we are recording this like end of October. And every year at this time, with the holidays coming, like Black Friday coming, la la la, holidays coming, I notice how like the volume is tuned up in noise outside. It's like the ads, the pitches, the manipulative language, politics going. Like that's also a window,
Pumpkin
right? It's like
spice, everything. I don't know how it is in
uh,
Portugal.
but it's like this year in particular, not only do I see, oh, okay, they are selling more, but it's getting more and more manipulative in all areas. It's like you mentioned it. It's like the challenges that we have in order to even connect with ourselves or with our partner. Like it's almost like you need to fight like invisible ghosts in your room, in your phone, that are everywhere, that are connecting you to all the things that are happening in the entire world, expecting you to know what is going on in the entire world at all times, have an opinion about it, protect yourself from ads, block yourself from it. Like you need to by now you need to be a mental warrior, to get to that place where you are opening up to um, flirting with your partner, or to tuning in with, am I even a sexual being or not? Like can I leave all of that outside of my bedroom for a moment? Am I allowed to have joy when I know there is crazy things happening in the
Yeah.
world? It's like it's that is like something that I experience nowadays in people on their minds. It's
Oh
like
yeah.
you really need to find a way for yourself to block yourself from that. I don't know if it also
Oh,
resonates with
I'm
you,
like,
your
we
experience.
could have a whole other podcast interview about everything you just said. I mean, but what I will, to try to like respond in brief, it's real. Like what we are doing battle, and I'm using that term with a lot of intent. We are doing battle for our attention, right? Like, and so it is true that for people who care to invest in their partnerships and their intimate life, or if that is something that you hold as a priority, you have to back that up with action. You have to protect space and time, psychically and physically, energetically and emotionally, to be able to show up in your relationships, to connect with your own erotic flow, your sexual energy. It's not a personal failing if you're sitting here holding the weight of your world on your shoulders and thinking, God, sex is like the last thing I'm going to prioritize right now. However, it is a personal choice what you do when you notice yourself in those circumstances. The choice to carve out protected time on the calendar that is a consistent intimacy date. The choice to work with somebody like me, where then you have external accountability. It's like, okay, I'm paying her good money, I'm going to show up for my sessions, like whatever you need to do to first and foremost protect some space in your life to focus on this. Because yeah, we are all like doing battle for like our attention. Everyone wants it, and we give it
Yes.
away freely when we're not resourced. We give it away freely when we start scrolling mindlessly on our phones or jumping at this, that, or the other. And let me be very clear, guilty over here too. Like I am not going to be like, like acting like I don't fall prey to this. I know it from the inside, as we all do. Who doesn't feel this nowadays? So it isn't a personal failing, but it is a personal choice. Do you
Yes.
want to continue to be sucked into that? Or do you want to say, I'm going to create a boundary for myself, and I'm going to create some accountability for myself to really tend to what matters the most to me? It is a
Yeah.
choice.
Yeah. It is a choice. on that regard, I have just launched my own experiment of deleting Instagram Tuesdays through Sundays, and I only install it on Mondays. And that's my time when I look at things. And
That's so great.
it's like, wow, I downloaded that app in like 2012. And, and here I am.
Good for you.
I will see where that goes.
We'll see where it goes.
Yeah. Darshana, it was wonderful having you here. How can people find you, connect with you, and do you have any last words before we come to an end?
Well, you can find me on Instagram if you have not deleted it from your phone. And believe me, I am in a love-hate. My original Instagram account got banned. So I was off Instagram for years and I just started re-engaging again. You can find me at my website. That's the best place to go, is darshanaavila.com. And you can get on my newsletter. You can check out my YouTube channel. I have a podcast coming out in the not too distant future. So there are ways that are not solely based upon social media to engage. And even though I'm based in California, I have clients who travel from all over the world, all over the United States and other countries to work with me. So if you are curious about what your journey to erotic wholeness could be, reach out and I would love to see if I'm the person to support you. And to your question of like a last thing to leave people with, take some more deep breaths than you think you need. Turn your eyes away from the screen, even if momentarily. Touch another human body or a pet or grass. Like, remember your humanity, because that is really what all of this is about. Do what you can do to remember your humanity as often as possible.
Love it. Yes. Subscribe to that. I'm gonna hug my wolf in a second, and friends coming over and watching the sunset. I will do all of the above. So
love it.
It was an honor to have you here. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Such a great conversation.
Imagine a world where emotional mastery, relational support, and inner work come before heartbreak, resentment, divorce, reactivity. And you know what increases the odds of your 10x kind of love? Taking people along, sharing this with the people that have the biggest influence on you. If you like this podcast, please subscribe to my channel and share it with one or the 5 people that have the biggest influence on you and that deserve the 10x kind of love. Let's raise the bar stronger together.